The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, sleepy shadows across the well-manicured lawns of Oakwood Estates. Each house stood like soldiers in perfect rows, their facades a flawless blend of pastel hues and white picket fences. This was the kind of neighborhood where curtains twitched when someone walked by, and gossip spread faster than the wind. I sat on my porch, a mug of steaming tea in hand, feeling the warmth seep into my palms. This was my sanctuary, a quiet corner where I could watch the world go by. My thoughts drifted as leaves rustled gently in the cool evening breeze. Peaceful moments were rare treasures. Then came the sound, the unmistakable click of heels on concrete, a sound that, in this part of town, often heralded the arrival of trouble. My eyes shifted to the figure striding with purpose along the sidewalk. Karen. She was the self-appointed commander of our local HOA, a woman whose penchant for orderliness bordered on obsession. Her presence was like a storm cloud drifting into an otherwise clear sky. I knew she had her sights set on me. Again. Today, it seemed, my porch had become her target. An invisible line crossed, her eyes, sharp as daggers, fixed on me. I could almost hear the cogs turning in her head, measuring up my transgressions against the sacred HOA rulebook she clutched like a holy text. I knew what was coming. She had done this before, her voice carrying like a drill sergeant's through the crisp evening air. But this was my place, my refuge. I wouldn't let her sour my peace with her petty complaints. I sat there, calm and unmoving. As she approached, her presence was a tempest, but I was the rock standing steadfast against the tide. My thoughts wandered to my brothers, my Marine brothers. They were due to visit soon, a reunion long overdue. The thought brought a smile to my lips, a warmth spreading through me that no HOA decree could extinguish. Karen's arrival was swift and deliberate. She stood there, waiting, expecting compliance, but there was power in silence, in the gentle defiance of remaining seated, of not giving her the satisfaction of a confrontation. I met her gaze with a quiet confidence, a look that spoke of battles fought and won, far beyond the confines of our suburban microcosm. Her lips moved, echoing a familiar script, something about regulations, appearances, maintaining the neighborhood's integrity. The words blurred together, a monotonous drone against the symphony of nature around us. I nodded occasionally, letting her voice fade into the background. My mind was elsewhere with the echoes of camaraderie and laughter that would soon fill my home. It seemed the roots of her indignation ran deep, but I was rooted, too, in the tranquility of this moment. In the anticipation of brotherhood rekindled, I let her words wash over me, unperturbed, like waves breaking against an unyielding shoreline. She wouldn't understand. Some battles were fought with silence, some victories won with grace. As she turned to leave, perhaps sensing the futility of her mission, I remained on my porch. The quiet returned, settling around me like a comforting embrace. She would be back. Of that I had no doubt. But soon, my brothers would arrive, and when they did, perhaps then, Karen would finally understand the strength in unity, the power in quiet resistance. Until then, I would wait, calm and steadfast, sipping my tea as the stars began to dot the night sky. The sun had long since dipped beneath the horizon, casting a muted hush over the neighborhood. Streetlights flickered to life, punctuating the gathering darkness like sentinels standing guard. My porch, my supposed stronghold of peace, now felt more like a stage set for an unfolding drama that had spiraled far beyond my initial amusement. Karen's presence had a way of spreading like wildfire. Her whispers, laced with the venom of a seasoned schemer, had already begun weaving through the community like invisible threads, knotting into a tapestry of judgment and disdain. As I stepped outside to retrieve the mail, a few neighbors offered quick, sidelong glances before hurriedly averting their eyes, as if my mere presence were scandalous. The latest newsletter from the HOA found its way into my hands, a beacon of the absurdities to come. There, buried beneath announcements of upcoming bake sales and reminders to water communal plants, was a list of new rules, rules that, conveniently, seemed tailored to my every move. Porch decorations must maintain a uniform color scheme. Flags are to be no larger than 2 feet by 3. No gatherings of more than 4 individuals without prior approval. Each line read like a personal attack, a meticulously crafted challenge to my autonomy. I sighed, folding the paper with deliberate precision. It was all so predictable, yet still managed to sting with a fresh bite. Karen's game had evolved from petty annoyance to a calculated siege, but the battle was far from over. She underestimated the quiet strength honed through years of service, the resilience forged in the fires of camaraderie and duty, and she certainly underestimated my brothers. The following morning was no different. A bright yellow slip clung to my door, flapping in the breeze like a flag of surrender I had no intention of raising, an unfair citation for the height of my lawn, laughably precise in its measure of non-compliance. I chuckled dryly. Her obsession with control was becoming a farce. Rumors began to swirl, each more fantastical than the last. I had heard them all, that I was running an illegal business from my porch, that my gatherings were secret meetings of a cult. It was amusing in its absurdity, yet undeniably effective in sowing seeds of doubt. And so, as I sat on my porch, sipping coffee and watching the world pass by, I waited. The anticipation was as thick as the morning fog rolling in from the coast. It wasn't long before the familiar rumble of engines broke the stillness. A convoy of motorcycles emerged from the haze, their riders clad in leather and camaraderie. My brothers. Karen's face, as she peered from behind her pristine curtains, became a study in shock, pale as the moon. Her expression shifted through a spectrum of disbelief and dawning realization. The cavalry had arrived, not with weapons, but with presence, a silent rebuke to her petty tyranny. It was a moment of sweet irony, the very image Karen feared most, a gathering of more than 4, without her precious approval. Right under her scrutinizing gaze, the porch, once her battlefield, had become a bastion of defiance. I met her eyes, a silent challenge, a promise that this was only the beginning. Her reign of petty terror was about to meet the unwavering wall of brotherhood. The war she had waged in shadows was now thrust into the light. In that moment, the balance of power shifted. I could see it in her retreat, the quick withdrawal from the window. She knew, as did I, that this was no longer a game she could win through deceit and whispers. It was a battle fought with the strength of bonds forged far beyond her understanding. And as my brothers and I stood there, united in silent solidarity, I knew that the days ahead promised more than just resolution. They promised change. The air seemed to crackle as I meticulously arranged the stack of papers on my kitchen table. Each sheet held a piece of the puzzle that, when completed, painted a picture of HOA violations, harassment, and a certain blonde tyrant's flagrant disregard for decency. Karen, the self-appointed arbiter of our community's aesthetics, had overstepped for the last time. She wanted a war. I intended to give her one with precision. I inhaled deeply, letting the late afternoon light filter through the window, casting a serene glow on the evidence, months of her pettiness documented in ink, the letters, the fines, the absurd demands. It was all there. Her attempts to uproot my life from my own porch had been relentless. But she underestimated one crucial element: resilience forged in places far harsher than the confines of her manicured world. I had been patient. For too long, patience, honed by nights in distant deserts, waiting for dawn. But patience isn't passivity. It's a quiet, coiling force, waiting for the right moment to strike. This was that moment, and soon she would learn that not all battles are fought with loud declarations or raised voices. Sometimes silence and a quiet determination are far more potent. The knock at my door was soft, yet assured. As I opened it, The sight of my brothers in arms standing shoulder to shoulder on the porch was as heartening as the chill of a morning breeze after a stifling night. Their presence was a living bulwark camaraderie, etched in every soldier's stance. Each face bore stories untold, experiences shared in unspoken glances. I didn't need to say much, they understood. I offered them passage into my living room, the space quickly filling with the unspoken language of loyalty and shared history. There was a certain irony in Karen's demand that I leave my porch, a place I had fought to protect, a symbol of the very freedom she took for granted. As the evening rolled in, the house hummed with a quiet, potent energy. We reviewed our strategy, not one of confrontation, but of meticulous counteraction, where Karen wielded her clipboard and her HOA bylaws. We wielded a bond forged in fire. Her castle was built on sand, ours on rock. Outside, the streetlights flickered to life as the neighborhood settled into its routine calm. But in the shadows of familiarity lay the unexpected, a lesson Karen was about to learn. She would find no solace in her fortress of regulations, not when faced with the indomitable spirit of those who had weathered storms far greater than her petty reign of terror. I envisioned the moment she would see us, her pale face a canvas of disbelief, the irony of her own isolation reflected back at her, a mirror she could no longer ignore. No grand scenes, no loud declarations, just the quiet, undeniable presence of resolve. In the silence of the evening, accompanied by the distant hum of crickets, I felt the weight of anticipation lift. This was no longer just my battle. It was a testament to the silent warriors who knew that strength lay not in bluster, but in the quiet certainty of action. We would make our stand, not with noise, but with the quiet assurance that justice, like time, would prevail. And so, as the stars took their place in the night sky, I closed my eyes, knowing that tomorrow held the promise of a new dawn. In the end, it wouldn't be the sound of Karen's demands echoing through the neighborhood. It would be the quiet, resolute echo of justice, served not with fanfare, but with the slow, steady march of truth. The air was heavy with the aftermath of unexpected reinforcements. My Marine brothers lingered like silent sentinels around the porch, their presence as solid as the oak beams beneath their feet. Karen had retreated, her pale face a ghostly memory against the tapestry of neighborhood chaos she'd woven. I sat quietly, a fortress of calm amid the storm. It was the kind of calm born from years of wearing the uniform, from standing steadfast while the world tried to shake you loose. The Marines had taught me that true power often lay in the silence before a storm. And so I planned my next move with the precision of a military operation, each step a chess piece sliding into place. Legal measures were my next tactic, quiet, subtle, but devastating. I enlisted the help of an old friend, a lawyer who knew the ins and outs of neighborhood disputes. He was sharp, with eyes that missed nothing and a mind that dissected problems like a surgeon with a scalpel. We met in my living room, the soft hum of the ceiling fan the only interruption to our strategizing. The homeowners association had rules, and Karen had violated them like a rebel without a cause. Her actions were documented in the black and white clarity of legal papers, bullet points laying out her transgressions with no room for her embellishments: trespassing, harassment, disturbing the peace. Each charge was a stone in the foundation of the case we were building. I watched the lawyer's pen move across the paper, a conductor orchestrating a symphony of justice. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Karen, the self-appointed guardian of the HOA's sanctity, was now facing the very rules she had wielded like a club. The thought danced in my mind, a wry smile ghosting across my lips. Outside, my Marine brothers still held vigil, their presence a quiet testament to solidarity. Their camaraderie was an unspoken promise, forged in places far less forgiving than this suburban battlefield. They didn't need words to convey what their presence meant. It was a reminder that true strength was often found in unity. The legal proceedings advanced with the precision of a well-rehearsed drill, The association board, once swayed by Karen's fervor, now listened with the attentiveness of jurors in a courtroom drama. Evidence was presented, each piece a nail in the coffin of Karen's reign over the HOA. Her protests were met with the quiet, steady gaze of my lawyer, unflinching and relentless. Days passed in a blur of paperwork and strategic meetings. I moved through them with deliberate calm, aware of the eyes that watched from behind lace curtains and manicured hedges. The neighborhood buzzed with the electricity of change, the air crackling with anticipation. In the end, it was Karen's own hubris that led to her unraveling. Her attempts to justify her actions fell flat, echoing in the silent hall of judgment she had constructed. The board's decision was swift and decisive, a ruling in my favor, a declaration of boundaries respected, of peace restored. As the verdict settled over the neighborhood like a gentle rain, I stood on my porch, a quiet king surveying his reclaimed domain. The Marines had returned to their lives, their duty fulfilled, leaving only the ghost of their presence in the strength they'd lent me. I breathed in the crisp air, letting it fill my lungs with the promise of quieter days. Karen was conspicuously absent from the neighborhood gatherings that followed. Her voice, once a crescendo of interference, was now a whisper barely remembered, a reminder that even the loudest calls for control can be silenced by the quiet strength of justice. And me, I remained a sentinel on my porch, a guardian of tranquility, a testament to the power of calm resolve. The day dawned cold and clear, the kind of crisp morning that seemed to slice through the clutter of the past days. It was a peculiar kind of silence that hung over the neighborhood, as if the entire world held its breath in anticipation. The leaves, golden and crimson, whispered secrets as they fell, carpeting the ground with autumn's tapestry. Karen had been quiet since the encounter on my porch. The neighborhood had shifted subtly, like a dance where the rhythm suddenly changes and everyone needs a moment to find their footing. Her silence wasn't surrender, though it was the hushed pause before the storm, the eye of her own self-imposed hurricane. I stood on my porch, the memory of my Marine brother's visit still fresh, a comforting balm on old wounds. They'd arrived like a force of nature, their presence a testament to bonds forged in fire. Their solidarity had been a silent symphony, no need for grand gestures or eloquent speeches, just the weight of their presence, a promise that I was not alone. Karen's friends, the HOA loyalists who'd once rallied to her cause, now glanced at me with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The power dynamics had shifted. It was no longer a simple matter of compliance with the HOA's whims. It was about respect, about understanding that the lines drawn in suburbia's sands were meant to guide, not to control. The community meeting was set in the evening, the gathering to discuss the incident on my porch. I could feel it in the air, the potential for resolution or combustion. As I made my way to the gathering, I reflected on the irony of it all. Karen, with her sanctimonious zeal, had unwittingly united the neighborhood in a way her rulebook never could. The community hall was bathed in the warm glow of pendant lights, the chatter of neighbors mingling like the hum of bees in a hive. I felt the eyes on me, the whispers of speculation. But I walked with the calm born of knowing who I was, a quiet strength that didn't need to shout to be heard. Karen sat at the front, perched like a queen on a throne of paper and rules. But there was a crack in her facade, a pale shadow of uncertainty that danced across her features. Her usual acolytes had taken a step back, their loyalty shaken by the spectacle of my Marine brother standing firm in silent defiance. When the meeting began, it was the usual procedural monotony, but there was an undercurrent of tension, a palpable electricity. Karen began with the expected rhetoric, her voice a carefully modulated instrument of authority. Yet, as she spoke, I could feel the room shifting, like a tide turning against the pull of the moon. I stood when it was my turn, the room expectant, the air heavy with anticipation. I spoke not of defiance, not of division, but of community, of the strength in diversity. In unity, I spoke of my porch as a place of welcome, a symbol of openness and homecoming. The words flowed, carried on the wind of shared understanding, and I watched as eyes softened, as heads nodded. Karen's composure faltered, just for a moment, but it was enough. Enough for the neighborhood to see the truth beneath the veneer. Her rule was one of fear, of division. Mine, I hoped, was one of inclusion, of rebuilding. The meeting ended not with a bang, but with a quiet resolve. Karen's pale visage was a testament to the shift, the realization that her reign was no longer absolute. The neighborhood began to disperse, the murmurs of conversation softer now, more hopeful. As I made my way back to my porch, the night air cool and invigorating, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The battle was not over, but the tides had turned. The porch light cast a warm glow, a beacon in the dark, a promise of new beginnings. It was a small victory, but one that sang of future harmony, of a community restored.